This is Stingray, host of the Stingray Show, reminding you if you like our content and you like our episodes, wherever you are listening to this from, whether it be YouTube or on Spotify, make sure you subscribe to our content for all of the latest information and latest episodes. And without further ado, here is another great episode, so enjoy and continue listening. Just ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show, we are going to take you back in time to 2007 and talk with an All-SEC Freshman Team Award winner in 2007 for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who played there for 2 years and then transferred to Florida International. Wes Carroll, the former Mississippi State quarterback, will join us on this edition of the Stingray Show to talk about his career as a Bulldog and as a Florida International player. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a lot to cover with Wes Carroll, so let's get the Stingray Show rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out, you're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate
No,
that.
I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. And with things winding down in college football, and we basically touch a little bit on college basketball, now is the time that we go back in time and talk with former players and coaches about their time when their heyday was and their playing careers. And we are going to start that right now with a former Mississippi State Bulldog player who was awarded the first team All-SEC in 2007 under Sylvester Croom and then transferred to Florida International. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the Stingray Show the last quarterback at Mississippi State to knock off the Alabama Crimson Tide. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wes Carroll. Wesley, how are you doing on this Tuesday evening?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Hey, thank you guys so much for having me on. You know, Stephen, in watching that intro, I could not help but think that you were the guy leading the charge on the cowbells while we were on offense.
Yes.
When are we going to get a little bit quieter for the offense at work? You know, like
Right.
Peyton Manning used to have to quiet everybody down. No, could not quiet down the Mississippi State faithful.
Yes.
Wes, tell us, what are you doing these days?
Back coaching with where I played in high school, St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Been there going on 6 years now. I'm now
Legendary school there in Florida.
Huge pipeline into not only
What's some
college
name
but into the
dropping for us?
pros.
Talk about some of those.
There's a pretty big one that just recently finished up, graduated Alabama, Jordan Battle. Really good kid. Had the pleasure of being one of the coaches on the staff with him leading the defense, but. Back there coaching quarterbacks, and I'm the offensive coordinator. We've done pretty well. We're just won 4 straight state titles. We're most state championships in the state, which arguably the greatest talent in the country would come from Florida, particularly South Florida, and We've got the most pros playing currently. We've got more pros playing currently than a lot of top FBS schools. So we're really proud of not only the success that we've had, but of course, just the way we do it, the way in which we go about our day, about our business. We don't take shortcuts, and it's really cool to be part of that. George Smith, who's been part of the program for over 50 years. If you guys haven't heard the name, I mean, he's an absolute legend and a pioneer in high school football. And then, that turned into the football recruiting to the next level. Guys are going all over the country. They're doing great things on and off the field. And, if they're talented enough, they go to the next level. And we're just, I'm grateful to be part of, an opportunity to fulfill, not only his legacy, but to continue it.
Wes, off air, you were talking about the playoff game your senior year in high school. Get into that a little bit, please, now that we are on the air.
So, St. Thomas Aquinas, 04, 05, 06, I was the starting quarterback. And this was a season that ended every year playing the Lakeland Dreadnoughts. And they later were, they were known as the Gator Knots. They sent 7 guys to the University of Florida, including the Pouncey twins, Chris Rainey, Ahmad Black, Steve Wilkes. They had John Brown, was the #1 defensive lineman in the country, went to Tennessee. They were just loaded. I mean, we had some guys, but they were absolutely loaded. I always have to remind people that they are a PE magnet school. And if you know anything about what that means, it basically means you can get anybody into your school as long as there's room in the school and transportation and so on and so forth. But here we are, Catholic school down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, going up against them for the 3rd straight year. And guys, I get reminded daily, and I guess it's myself reminding me, the double overtime loss against Lakeland on a botched call by the referees where we were down 35 points with about 4.5 minutes to go, came back and kind of got screwed. A little biased on that, but it was one of those memories, though. I mean, not to sound cliche, but helps you down the road because you know how to battle back through adversity, and at the quarterback position, something that you have to have. You got to have that moxie and poise, even when you're getting your tail whooped.
You talked about the other team having guys like Chris Rainey and the Pouncey twins, but another Florida Gator was on your team, Major Wright. Do you have any funny stories surrounding your teammate, Major Wright?
Probably a lot of funny stories, and even on this show, can't even say on the air. But no, Major was a great guy, great ambassador to the sport of football from our program, and did some great things in college. My vivid memory are 2 things. One, him knocking out my best friend Kyle Johnson in high school. Kid later went on to Brown and has had concussion issues ever since, unfortunately. And Major knocking out Buddy from Oklahoma in the national championship game on the sideline, really setting the tone. Major was a DB that didn't wear gloves because he couldn't really catch. So he taped up his fingers because he was going to just absolutely annihilate you. He did not care about finding the ball. He was just going to make sure that you knew he was always lurking around. And he, had a great college career and solid pro career. He's written a book. He's comes back to the school and donates time and energy into the youth. So Major's just a great guy in my book.
That's awesome.
Hey, fun question. Is Major one of the main reasons that we have the targeting rule now?
There's no doubt. I'm sure that when they show that clinic tape to the refs, they're pointing out a lot of Major Wright type hits because he was a headhunter. And I mean, look, you play by the rules, and some guys they tote that line and they like to agitate. And Major certainly toted that line and crossed it a few times or two. But hey, glad he was on my team.
So, Wes, we were up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to dive immediately into your recruitment to Mississippi State under Mississippi State head coach Sylvester Croom. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back to continue our player interview with former Mississippi State Bulldog Wesley Carroll right after this. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group, right here in Tuscaloosa. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show, and that fight song right there must mean that we're talking about a former Mississippi State player, and that's exactly right. Wes Carroll, the former Mississippi State quarterback, is joining us this evening, and now we are going to dive into his recruitment to Mississippi State under former head coach Sylvester Croom. Well, talk about your recruitment to Mississippi State with Sylvester Croom. What went into that process?
So, once again, I can't stress enough that, playing at St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale is a more unique school than most. Unique in the sense that we were more relationship built with George Smith and college coaches than anywhere else. And with that being said, Coach had a knack for kind of filtering out where you went and kind of dissuading some schools and maybe pushing you towards other schools. And rightfully so, because he knew more or less where you could play. He knew more or less where you couldn't play. And he did a great job of that. I was highly recruited, but, just a little backstory. I didn't play football to go to college. I played because it was a lot of fun and I was naturally good at it. And that was just kind of it. My freshman year, I actually played at South Point High School in Belmont, North Carolina, and we won a state championship. I was a 3-sport athlete. I thought, man, this is the greatest thing in the world. I've got my whole life ahead of me playing high school football, basketball, and baseball. Well, then my family moved, and we had moved all over the place, kind of got accustomed to, my dad having to, switch jobs and move around. And so here we go. We go to St. Thomas Aquinas down in Fort Lauderdale, and I end up starting as a sophomore. I knew nothing about going and playing college football. I only just watched it on TV, grew up a diehard Tennessee Volunteer fan. That's where my dad went. So I sang Rocky Top, when I was, a year and a half old. So I didn't really think about going to college to play football. I was a Harvard, Yale, Princeton type guy and started getting offers in the mail. My first offer was from Chuck Amato when he was at North Carolina State, and then Mississippi State. And then there was just, the gates kind of open, and you're a 3-year starter at St. Thomas. You're going to get some recognition. And it wasn't really so much, really about the school. I didn't know much about Mississippi State, and, other than watching them on bowl games. It's not like they were on local television or anything. So, you kind of saw them. I, remember watching the 2000 Independence Bowl, that overtime game, and just, kind of, being a unique program. If you're not from there, you just really don't know a whole lot about it. But it wasn't anybody other than Woody McCorvey, which, salt of the universe guy who's, he's ever since Dabo Swinney's been the head coach at Clemson. He's been the DFO there. He stayed on me from the early going, and he was a real driving force to why I went there. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, I went there mostly because of a coach that was going to coach me as a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. And then, not to mention an opportunity to play in the SEC. And that's ultimately what got me to Mississippi State.
A quick follow-up to that. Talk about the first time you met Sylvester Croom and what that was like.
So Sly was, he was such a good guy. I mean, he was humble to a fault. He just, he wore his emotions on his sleeve. I'll never forget, we were down 14 in the fourth quarter, Egg Bowl my freshman year, and come back and win that game 17-14. And, I think it was just a culmination of everything that he had been through in his entire life, up until that point, winning a huge game, going through adversity. He bawled. He cried like a little kid. And I didn't know as much about him till after the fact, watching that SEC documentary on Croom and him being an All-American center at Alabama and kind of getting, short end of the stick on that interview process with Bama. And now Mike Shula got the job. I mean, Shula is actually a, hometown name here in South Florida. Right. I actually played with Matt Shula and, Don and those guys. So Sly was such a good guy, such a good, humble guy, which I think he cared almost too much to where it ate him inside. That's why he had a harder time being a head coach, not just being able to go out there, coach, go out there and pour his heart and soul into everything. As right. At that level, you've got to be a figurehead. You've got to be the politician. Sometimes you've got, other responsibilities. So Sly was such a good guy, man. And so happy to have played for him. So happy to have played for, the first ever Black SEC head coach, which was really, really cool.
Talk about taking the field for the first time in a Mississippi State uniform. What was that like for you?
It was wild. It was unexpected. I think the best thing is to say I had shoulder surgery in the offseason going into my freshman year, was not expected to really play. And the stars, I guess, kind of aligned in my favor. I'll never forget, my mom made the drive. There were no flights into the Golden Triangle. So she had to drive up from South Florida. We were playing LSU on when they used to do it the right way, when they had like the kickoff classic. It was, one of those, late week games. And we're playing LSU 2007. I was not the starter yet. And Michael Hennig was. He kind of had a rough game, to say the least. Mike was such a great guy. And there was so much going into that game around him because he had beat Alabama the year prior in 2006. They had kind of built around Mike, and Mike had just like a laser rocket arm that,
that game was in Tuscaloosa, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Mississippi State won in 2006 in Tuscaloosa. And so
go on, stand right before halftime. Yeah,
that's right. And so we're getting our butts beat, to say the least. It's a landslide. And to say the stars aligned, there was an issue with, at the time, the backup quarterback. So here I am now, the backup going into the game. And, I had always known from high school, you are a play away. So that was my mindset. And I wasn't a play away due to injury that game. I was, I just went in because it was like, okay, well, I remember Woody McCorvey at the time saying, all right, well, hey, let's get his feet wet. And go into the game. I line up my first snap. It's Glenn Dorsey. It's Tyson Jackson, Ali Beckwith, the freaking 2007 national championship LSU Tigers. And that was my first rep of college ball. I mean, I was 183 pounds soaking wet. Like I said, wow. I was not supposed to play. I was coming off of a surgery I had like 4 or 5 months prior to that. But just like anything else, after that first snap, butterflies go away, and it was smooth sailing from there. But I didn't end up really winning that starting job for a couple of weeks, but that was an interesting first college snap.
Okay, we actually have a listener question from a guy who is a huge Mississippi State fan right here in Tuscaloosa. He is Landon Tucker. He's a good friend of mine, and he would like to know, when did you personally know that the 2007 team was going to be a special one?
That's a good question. Looking back, we had a pretty solid win at Auburn. I remember the 90,000+ fans there at Jordan Hare. I mean, I can remember, I didn't grow up going to SEC games. I mean, I'd lived all over the place, but I can remember getting on that bus, and it's just RVs for miles and miles and miles. And you can like smell the barbecue and grilling, through the bus. So that was my first real like on-road experience. And once again, I didn't start the first series. Mike hurt his thumb or wrist on like second throw of the game, something like that. And then I went in, we held on for the win. Good good defense, good, running the ball. And that was a big sign. The other one was at Kentucky. We went into Kentucky. They were ranked like, I think 12 or 14 in the country. They had Charles Woodson was a Heisman candidate quarterback.
Yeah.
I think, they had dudes. I mean, Wesley Woodyard was on that team. And we went in there. We scored we went right down, scored on our first drive. 8-7 flanker drive, hit Tony Burks for a touchdown, really, and then scored the next drive. Anthony Dixon threw to him from out of the backfield, and then we just poured it on and held on to a real big win for Mississippi State.
So we are up against yet another break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about the career of Wesley Carroll at Mississippi State. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back after this commercial break. And this Mississippi State edition of the Stingray Show is brought to you by Strange Brew Coffee House continues to roll out brand new drinks, including the Yosemite, which is white chocolate and roasted marshmallow. Doesn't that sound amazing? You can find Strange Brew at 1101 University Boulevard, right there on the strip at the University of Alabama campus. And hey, did you know that you can get Strange Brew delivered to your door? Check out strangebrewcoffeehouse.com for all the Strange Brews bags of coffee, K-cups, mugs, shirts, and a whole lot more right there at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. Hail State! Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Wesley Carroll, the former Mississippi State quarterback who played under Sylvester Croom. And let's go on ahead and continue talking about specific games in his career. Coming from your high school, what was it like the first time you heard the cowbells at Davis Wade? That had to be a major shock to you.
Yeah, I picture all these people with the cowbells, and I think most of them are named Stephen Ray. And, these guys, I'm like, man, these guys they got so much energy, right? You hear about it, but you never really know how loud and obnoxious it is till you're actually on the field. And I feel sorry for the other teams that have to walk into that environment. But I'm glad they were on my side for the most part. It was such a cool atmosphere playing, on Saturday, late morning or night games, Mississippi State.
Fun question to bring up on this, and I always ask this to all of our guests. We go back to recruiting. Now, you're a high school coach. You're at a major high school. As you mentioned earlier in the show, most NFL talent from any high school. With that being said, there has got to be some fun stories about recruiting and benefits or sponsors or whatever you want to call it. Now, I'm not asking you to drop any names. If you want to, feel more than free. We'll all have a laugh about it. But what is the craziest benefit you've ever heard a recruit getting going to college?
I mean, it's so different. It's so different now, right? I mean, because it's legal and it feels weird. It feels weird that these coaches are coming in and putting together these package deals like X amount of dollars. You need 1 or 2 cars. It's real. But it feel like, does your mom also need a car? And it feels illegal. It feels like you're doing something wrong, but it's not. And it's part of the game today. I can speak for myself only. I mean, I wish I could give you something a little bit more catchy and fun, but once again, at St. Thomas, we've always done the things the right way. And we've always made sure of that because we have to keep our integrity. Now, the stories I've heard about other guys and things that they've got, it's to me, when you give somebody things that they ask for and they may not need, it may not be the right person for your program. And you kind of see that. You kind of see guys that haven't panned out at the next level. I'm not saying that everybody that's gotten something under the table hasn't panned out, but sometimes those aren't the guys that you want. You want the guys that want to be there for the right reason. And unfortunately, there's not as many programs as there used to be that are in it for the right reason. Like they just want to win. They want to have pride in their program. And if they're good enough, go to the NFL. Those times, unfortunately, have passed. But there's some hefty numbers getting thrown out there. I mean, with some of these quarterbacks getting multi-million-dollar 4-year deals, it's like, why do you even want to leave college?
Yes.
You're their guy. They're indebted to you, and you have an opportunity to go to the NFL whenever it seems necessary for you to go.
Wes, we were talking about Sly Croom earlier in the show, and he's obviously a very beloved figure in the SEC, especially in Tuscaloosa and Starkville. But I heard a crazy story when I was a very young media guy straight out of college about Coach Croom. He showed up to a class on campus and was sitting toward the back, and some guys kind of came in late, and so the class was kind of going on, and the professor says, "Are there any questions?" And Coach Croom raises his hand and goes, "Yeah, I have a question." That's my best Coach Croom voice I got. "Yeah, I have a question. Are you supposed to come in on time? Are you supposed to sit upright in your chair? Is your hat supposed to be on or off? And if it's supposed to be on, it's supposed to be facing the right way." I mean, and I heard these football players just sank in their seat, like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
Was that story true of Coach Croom showing up to class?
No, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. No, Coach Croom, that is who he was, and call it old school, but that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to hold guys accountable. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't just telling you to do something. He was following up and making sure you did it. And I think that's why maybe sometimes he struggled with the position that he was in, because he just wanted guys to be successes later in life and, future community leaders and all that. But I mean, yes, he would check on classes. He would make sure that, there were those rules. You were early. If you're on time, you're late type of mentality.
Right.
And you sat in the front. You didn't wear your hat. You were sitting up straight. You were taking notes, and you were always attentive. I can remember guys like Jody Wright, Wes Goodwin, Ryan Holloran, who were more of support staff roles at the time at Mississippi State. Now they've all gone on to do bigger and better things. Jody Wright's a tight ends coach at South Carolina. Ryan Holloran was just with the Giants. Wes Goodwin's a DC at Clemson. So, these are guys that kind of learned through Coach Croom. They might not have been players, but they were learning those little things that mattered, right? I mean,
right.
Coach Smith at St. Thomas Aquinas, since before I was born, I mean, he's always been his big thing is it's about the little things. And it's true. And Coach Croom was the type of guy that would make sure that you were in class via being there to actually see you're there and not take somebody's word for it.
Okay.
So, let me ask you this real quick. Did Coach Croom ever get you? I mean, every coach gets you at one time or another. What did Coach Croom get you on? I mean, was it something on the field? Was it your shirt tail not being tucked in? Was it you showing up on time, which is 5 minutes late? Or
Sure.
Something on the practice field? What did Coach Croom, what's a fun story that you can share that Coach Croom just lit you up?
So I would say the best Coach Croom story, and you can just imagine a guy with a ton of pride, played center at, better than anybody while he was in college, All-American.
Right.
And I can remember we were having an issue in 9-on-7. For those of you that don't know 9-on-7, it's basically let's feel really good about ourselves on defense, put 9 guys in the box. We know that they're going to run the ball. We're going to bring support players up. We're not going to honor the pass, and we're just going to come downhill. We're going to kill the running back, quarterback, O-line, and anybody that's in their way. Well, that day we were having a hard time getting quarterback center exchange. And I was a quarterback that was used to getting under center. I mean, I did it in high school and I didn't really have a problem. But when you're the center and you know that there's an A-gap double, A-gap blitz, and they're just teeing off on you, the last thing you really are thinking about is getting the ball back to the quarterback. You just don't want to get absolutely knocked to the ground. Well, Coach Croom stops practice because, of course, it's my fault, right? It's the quarterback's fault when you don't get the snap. No problem. Take all the blame in the world for that. Coach Croom basically guilted me into and forced me to get snaps under center with him in front of the entire team. Now, it's a little awkward, right? I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm in camp. I don't know what's going on at this point. And he's forcing me to get, a little bit closer than you'd like to with an older man who's also your head coach to get under center snaps. And in his big, deep Coach Croom voice would just, now see, that's how you do it, son. You got to get in there. And then you just like, Coach, I know, but I don't want to do it. You're forcing me to do something I don't want to do. probably can't do that now, and coach
I
would
was about to say,
probably be
I think
fired and outcasted from football forever.
he might have broke laws in all 50 states by doing that. But we'll keep that to ourselves and all of our listeners, right?
There you go.
So let's go back to the 2007 season. You are the last quarterback to beat the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Talk about that game and how much pride you have knowing that fact.
It's cool. I was part of the team, right? I mean, I did my part. Other guys probably did some more, but it's funny because it still gets brought up whenever you're the last person to do something good or bad. I mean, people are going to remember it.
Right.
And I will not forget in that game, we went, far right Z short, H6 flanker drive, throw a hot route to Tony Burks. And I can't remember who the defender was, but he came in, I followed through, boom, right on his helmet and broke some bone in my hand and my throwing arm. And came to the sideline, got it taped up. Remember Coach Croom coming over to me and, now Wes, win or lose, you're going to finish this game. And I said, oh, thanks, coach. I guess I'll get back out there, getting snaps under center and all that. There was a lot that went into that game that, looking back, I would have probably done differently. But, at the end of the day, we got a win. Anthony Johnson's 100-yard pick six, just the way our defense played. I mean, Avery Hannibal, Titus Brown. I mean, we had monsters on the defense, and they held their own against a good Bama team. People always think, oh, well, that was Saban's first year. And it's like, they were still in the top 20 and they were still, they had dudes all over the field that played at the next level. So that was one of the cooler experiences I ever had. I'll never forget. We're running 4-minute offense at the end of the game. We're just trying to run that clock out. We've got Anthony Booby Dixon in the backfield. We go short side, toss sweep into the boundary to pick up like a 3rd and 8. Nick Saban is past the hash, headset just broken into a million pieces. I'll never forget it. Then we go victory formation, and that was the last win, which I guess that was a good while ago, but it's pretty cool to be part of something so special.
Yes.
And you're the trivia, the Aflac trivia question of who was the last freshman quarterback. Now, if I'm not mistaken,
I used to be
Lawrence.
For a while. Yep.
Yeah.
Every holiday bowl season, it was, who was every time Bama played a true freshman, it was who was the last true freshman.
Wow.
I think Fromm had an opportunity at Georgia, and then Lawrence finally did it. And so I am no longer that tier of Aflac question.
You ever come across Trevor Lawrence? Has that ever come up between you two? Have you two ever met?
No, I've not met him. I think he's a little intimidated by the flow. I don't know if his
by your hair,
quite up to par. That's exactly right. I've been doing it a lot longer than he has. I mean, come on.
That's awesome. All right. The next week, you had your best performance at Mississippi State, throwing for over 400 yards versus Arkansas. Talk about that performance, please.
I mean, just look what happens when they let me throw it. I mean, we were pretty productive. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Listen, our defense, once again, they played well. The problem is we played against Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and Peyton Hillis, all three future NFL backs. I mean, and not just backs. I mean, they were dudes. That was they ran more of like a wishbone, like old school deal. Which, I mean, why wouldn't you? I think it was either Casey or Nathan Dick was the quarterback, and they had that thing rolling. We were forced to throw because we were behind pretty much the whole game, and it was a good opportunity to show what I was capable of doing through the air.
So we are up against our final break right here on the Stingray Show, and when we come back, we are going to finish up this interview with Wesley Carroll, talking about the Liberty Bowl and that season. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be back to finish it up right after this. Jeff Bagwell of Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama is a professional biologist who specializes in lake management. If you are interested in helping build the pond or lake of your dreams, or if you need help deciding if property you own is a good location to build a pond, you can contact Jeff Bagwell at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Contact him today and let him help you build the lake or pond of your dreams, or also stock your pond or lake with fish that you most desperately need. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. We are talking with Mississippi State quarterback and Florida International quarterback Wes Carroll. And Wes, right there during the break, you had an interesting little tidbit about being a game manager. Go ahead, my friend. The floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, I think it's funny that a lot of quarterbacks get all butthurt when they're told that they're a game manager. But I will remember Sly Croom in one of his interviews after a game, it might have been after the Bama game, he said, Wes Carroll's nothing but a winner. And it's like, okay, well, you can call me anything else all you want as long as we win. I mean, is that not what we're trying to go out and do? So I thought that was pretty cool by Sly Croom. And, you were talking about that Arkansas game. I do remember throwing for a bunch of yards and touchdowns. And I do believe, and maybe you got to get your crack staff on this, but it was the most yards by any quarterback that year, including Tim Tebow, who won the Heisman. So I've got a handful of little statistical nuggets I hold on to, and hey, maybe one day that'll be on your question of the day or question of the week.
Okay. Mississippi State finished 2007 with an 8-5 record. However, the next season they fell to 4-8. In your opinion, what ultimately led to the drop-off there in Starkville?
I think it was a combination of things. Definitely some off-field issues in the offseason, and I think that all probably just stemmed from maybe guys' lack of ability to handle success. I think it got to some guys' heads a little bit, and certainly not to call anybody out, but it's hard if you played in youth league or high school and you're not used to success or winning, and you finally get a taste of it. Sometimes people don't handle it very well. So I think that trickled into the offseason, and we didn't have as nearly as good a offseason spring and summer as we probably should have going into the year, thinking we could just roll over anybody, and we didn't. And I think a lot of guys learned from it, and I know I did. I know I used that platform to not only further my career playing and then later on coaching, but helping mentor and guide youth and high school kids today.
Okay.
Wes, I got a fun question for you. If
Absolutely.
I'm not mistaken, you were about to break the NCAA record for most pass attempts, starting a career without an interception. And if I'm not mistaken, the very first pass of the Alabama game, and I don't want to bring up sore subject, you threw a pick, but I think you tied Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State.
Another guy that's got great hair. You guys see the trend. You see the trend here, right? You got to have good flow, good hair. So
what happened on that play? But am I correct on that? You tied the record?
Yeah, no. You unfortunately are correct. There was a lot going into that. I didn't, I can remember like the Clarion Ledger and different news sources asking me about it, and it never really resonated prior to the game during the week of practice. I don't keep stats. I am maybe old school in that way, like manage the game, win the game, move on to the next one. And going into that game, I guess that I had an opportunity. I think I fell, 2 or 3 short, something like that. And our first play that we threw the ball was like a more sophisticated, complex play. It was to Lance Long. we were not on the same page. It wasn't even in the vicinity of him. So at least I can go to bed at night realizing like it wasn't a physical error. Like,
Right.
I threw the ball where I wanted it to go, but we weren't on the same page. And a couple cool things happened from that. I was able to just kind of put that away. And I can remember coming to the sideline telling Woody McCorvey, we get on the little
Right.
corded phone there and just saying, all right, well, that's out of the way. Let's move on. And I think that was kind of a cool moment for me looking back is, I don't really, the record is what it is, but I do think back to, when I saw Woody a few years ago, I said, why didn't you just call a screenplay or let me just throw it at
Double pass.
Booby's feet? Or like, why couldn't I just throw it out of bounds a couple times and then put it away? And
Right.
obviously Woody had a good laugh, but that just wasn't our mindset, man. We were blue collar. We weren't thinking about any of that stuff, man. We were just trying to win a ball game.
Yes. So I've got to ask you, how difficult of a decision was it for you to transfer out of Mississippi State, and what attracted you to Florida International?
You did the transfer portal before the portal.
It was a little bit easier, so to speak, because they had fired Coach Croom. So the protocol, at least that it used to be, was you go to compliance, they sign your release, and you go. And then now, then it was like if you signed it, the coach was there, they would put stipulations on it. Well, there wasn't a head coach to put any stipulations on it. So I just went, got a sign, and left. And I had a couple conversations with Dan Mullen, and he wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I just couldn't see myself playing for him.
Right.
He was just polar opposite from Sylvester Croom. Whether you agree or disagree, that's just the tree that they both fell from, were very different trees. And so I had an opportunity. Thank God I had Coach Smith at St. Thomas to basically put myself back on the market for recruiting, the portal before the portal, and talked to Mario Cristobal, who was the head coach at FIU. The most attractive thing was that they were a program on the up and up.
Right.
Unbelievably talented wide receivers, spread offense, great opportunity. I mean, I threw to unbelievable teammate. Bunch of guys went to the NFL. We really had that thing rolling. I mean, my offensive coordinator was Scott Satterfield, who's now the head coach at Cincinnati. Defensive coordinator was Jeff Collins, who was just at Georgia Tech. So that whole coaching staff that was with Mario is all doing bigger and better things all over the country. So I just had a knack for finding a good home, and that was a great experience. 2 years starting at FIU. We won a conference championship my junior year, went to the first ever bowl game and won the Motor City Little Caesars Bowl against Toledo. The next year we won even more games and played in another bowl game against Marshall. So had a lot of good experiences there. And it was a fun journey, my college career.
We'll talk about the second game as the Florida International quarterback. You guys traveled down to Kyle Field in College Station to take on Texas A&M and almost beat them. Talk about that game, please.
Man, that was probably top 5 coolest places I played, just because that whole 12th man thing, that goofy thing they do with their rehearsals and the jumping all at the same time. I remember Scott Satterfield told me, like, you could feel the press box moving, and it's like, well, better you up there than me. But yeah, we were playing against a quarterback who was a Heisman candidate, Gerard Johnson. Anthony Gator picked him off a couple times, and in comes Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback.
Right.
We were up 14 points in the fourth quarter, and they scored 21 unanswered. A combination of letting our foot off the gas offensively, and we had them on the ropes. We had a good opportunity. I think the coolest part of that game, I still brag to people today, especially specialists and punters, was we went quick kick in plus territory and we downed the ball inside the 1. I got to punt. So that was a cool little stat that I got to accomplish there. But that was one of those building block games, though. At FIU, you're an up and coming program. You don't have money. So what do? Well, you either go raise money or you go play big teams with a lot of money that'll host you and give you $500,000 $1 million for going out there. And our first 4 games were Rutgers, Texas A&M, Pittsburgh, and Maryland. And we went out there to go get some money, get some notoriety. We kind of put ourselves on the map. We were in 3 of those 4 ball games for all 4 quarters, and then we started conference play. So it was cool being part of really 2 programs, kind of Mississippi State kind of getting back on the map, and then FIU just getting on the map altogether.
Wes, what was your welcome to the SEC moment?
Oh, I can tell you that one. I remember watching it. Don't remember it actually happening. Playing Tennessee at home. I roll out right. I think I'm going to cut back across the middle, and Gerard Mayo had other plans. I continued to play the second half. I had to watch film the next day to know that I did it. And I say this joking because I'm okay now, but it was real and scary then. Halftime, we get in the locker room, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, lights went on. And I kind of look over at Mike, and I was like, hey, you want to go get warm? Let's go throw. And he kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, let's go get warm. He said, we just came in from halftime. And I looked at, like, I don't know if any of you've ever had a concussion or one of those moments, but it was like my whole, like, I didn't even know what happened. Later to find out, we didn't have the technology that they have now with these helmets. Not that they're concussion proof, but I mean, we had the helmets with like the air bladders in them. Come to find out the bladder had a leak. There wasn't even any air in it. I mean, and so I took that hit against Gerard Mayo. I mean, who's a future Hall of Fame linebacker, played for the Patriots, was an absolute monster. That was my welcome to the SEC moment. Was you better get your head on a swivel because your whole season, career, everything can end in a flash. Now, I mean, not to throw anybody under the bus, I continued to play the rest of the game. I guess I passed all concussion protocols at the time, which was, hey, Wes, 369. 2 seconds later, hey, Wes, what were those 3 numbers? All right, you're good. Go in. Now, no disrespect to the medical staff because they're all great guys. Even the same issue we're having today in high school, college, and pro is there's no way to necessarily just diagnose a concussion across the board for everybody. And so that was my welcome to the SEC. Thanks for reminding me, Heath, of that.
You're welcome.
Well, Wes, look, man, we know that you were busy. We really do want to thank you for joining us. And before we let you go, for any of the Mississippi State fans that may be here in Tuscaloosa, the floor is all yours. Do you have anything you would like to say to the Bulldog Nation?
Oh, Steve and Heath, I just appreciate you guys having me on. It's always cool to just, reminisce and think about some, real cool memories. In the 3+ semesters I was there, met a lot of really cool people. Mississippi State, in a positive way, it's a different place. And you don't really know that until you go through, meet some people. You go to the different barbecue joints, you go to the tailgates, you go to a baseball game, and it was a really cool, memorable experience for me in a short time. Of course, it wasn't the tenure I had planned on as far as the after my freshman year, but still had just a lot of really great human beings, people that are still there today doing unbelievable things with student athletes or community outreach. So it's really an awesome thing also to see guys like Titus Brown give back to the community, continue to carry on his legacy for his family and to be one of the many community leaders from that team. So hats off to you guys for what you guys are doing. Really appreciate you guys having me on the show, and best of luck to you guys and the show moving forward.
Thank you, man.
If you had to go to Starkville today and have lunch, where are you eating?
That barbecue joint right there. Was it Dewey's? Little Dewey's. Oh my God. I went there. Woody McCorvey took me on my official visit. I mean, down here you get barbecue, but it's not the same. I mean, that stuff is so authentic and cool. It's cool to go in. You see all the different, like Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler and all those guys that put their picture up and go there when they call games there. But you got to go to Little Dewey's, get that sweet tea and pulled pork platter, man.
Yep. All right, Wes. Well, look, man, thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will do it again soon, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, take care, brother.
So guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Stingray Show. We really do want to thank Wesley Carroll for joining us. And a quick scheduling note briefly. Tomorrow evening, which is Wednesday, Alabama is on the road at South Carolina for a basketball game at 6 p.m. That game will not be over till 8, and then there is a post-game show, so we would not start until 9 or 10 tomorrow evening, so we are not going to have a show on Wednesday evening. When we come back, we will be back on Thursday, and we will be previewing current events, which will be the rest of the playoff games, as we are going to be joined by Adam Rittenberg, senior writer for ESPN, to discuss the Penn State-Notre Dame game, and then, of course, the Ohio State versus Texas game. Adam Rittenberg will join us when we return on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday evening, a wonderful Wednesday out there. No show tomorrow. We will catch you on Thursday at 6 p.m. for a preview of the semifinals in the college football playoff.